This and That and What the Fuck Else, episode 104. During the past few days, I've released a few Skidmarks that were more focused on single topics, and I discussed some of the issues that I see and that can affect our lives a lot. But here is the news for today, and there's some interesting stuff here. There's some articles about China, and quite a lot about the pestilence. Things are finding their way onto our screens easier than a few months back, all thanks to Elon Musk, I would say. And then I've got some stories about the Donbass, as usual, and there is a what the fuck that will just make you shake your head. The madness has got no boundary. Before I get to the news, I'm coming back to the usual image evaluation, and that's the scourge of being a photographic salon judge. You can't look at images and just look at the image and see it, and that's the end of it. Instinctively, you judge the thing, because that is what you are. And the following image that will come now, there's lots of these types of images that appear everywhere on the social media and so forth, and there's many amateur photographers that when they see their future as a photographer, this is what they see in their future, and well, I've got no problem with that. But you must look at these images critically, from a technical point of view, and a lot of them is just rubbish actually. Look at this. The first thing that catches your eye is that butt, and of course the long blonde hair and nice breasts and so. But then look carefully at the proportions in that photograph. That photograph has been doctored to make that model look bigger or longer than she is actually. And you can see it. The first thing is look at that hand on the wall and the arm. That arm is far too thin. That's not real. And then you look at the legs, same problem. If you look at their thighs and you look at their calves, and then look at the feet, the proportions are not right. So this chick was stretched a bit. Any case, I thought I'd mention this. If you don't like it, tell me in the comments. And then we get to the Baltics. Now, I have spoken about that shit in the Baltics. That 3 countries there are living under an illusion that they are much more powerful than what they really are. The reality is that they're a dead liability for the NATO and for the EU, because those countries cannot support themselves. They cannot. They're like a bankrupt business. Their overheads is higher than their revenue. And the shit that they've done during this Ukraine thing with the Russian hate and sanctions and so has destroyed their country's economies even more. So they're actually in care of the EU, like in foster care. And the main reason they're part of the EU and NATO is just to terrorize Russia. But, sadly for them, this so-called collective West that is supporting them and providing them with finances so that they can survive is bankrupt. I mean, look at this insane shit. The EU is making a loan to give to Ukraine. What the fuck is that? How must the EU citizens survive? But that is their problem. They allowed those leaders to get out of control. And look at this craziness here. Lithuania to impose complete firearms ban on Russians and Belarusians. Head of the Lithuania National Security and Defense Committee has announced that all Russians and Belarusian citizens in the country will be banned from owning firearms from January 1, 2023. This had to be done for reasons of our national security. Only 294 citizens of Russia permanently residing in Lithuania currently possess permits to own guns. And this is how they stir the shit with the Russian population in their countries. And then you have this from Estonia. US Army troops arrive in Estonia. The Estonian Defense Force confirmed American infantrymen have arrived at the Tara military base where they will train and serve together with the Estonian 2nd Infantry Brigade. A unit of the American Army arrived in Estonia on the basis of a bilateral agreement with the United States and the NATO summit in Madrid. President Joe Biden promised to strengthen the eastern flank of the alliance. And my words, fuck Biden. The reality is, they are pushing American soldiers all over the world, while their own country is falling to pieces and the immigrants are flooding them from the south. I cannot understand that the average American is taking this shit. Then to Latvia. Latvian MP calls for the expulsion of 250,000 Russians. In 1996, the demand was included in the Declaration of Occupation to conclude an agreement with the Russian government on the repatriation of former USSR citizens to their ethnic homeland. This requirement has not been met so far. He added, highlighting that 200 to 250,000 people who are unfriendly to his state currently live in Latvia. What the fuck is that? Didn't these guys see what happened to the Ukraine? They are begging for recalibration. And then I've got to add this little bit of Brazil, because we don't get any news from Brazil, and I have got quite a lot of sources and I don't see anything about Brazil. What the actual fuck is going on there, I have no idea. But look at that image, look at all those people there. And then the original post was, Jair Bolsonaro has confirmed that he is the supreme chief of the armed forces and they will back the Brazilian citizens. That was on the 11th of December. And then this guy says, this is a hell of a lot of people. It's true, but we don't get information. I wonder what's going on there. And then we get to China, and I've included this article specifically to show that the Chinese are developing their country, and the Chinese are doing amazing engineering stuff. Look at this, look at it. It's an amazing a glass bridge in the mountainous area. That is amazing. What is the West doing on par with that? Fuck all. They war and they borrow and print money. That's what they do. And then more from China. Xi Jinping doubles down on his Putin bet. I have a similar personality to yours. The Chinese leader has long admired Vladimir Putin. Now he is strengthening ties between the two nations with increased trade and energy partnerships. Xi Jinping is deepening his long-term bet on Russia. In recent weeks, he has instructed his government to forge stronger economic ties with Russia, according to policy advisors to Beijing, building on a trade relationship that has strengthened this year and become a lifeline to Moscow in the face of Western pressure. The plan includes increasing Chinese imports of Russian oil, gas and farm goods, more joint energy partnerships in the Arctic, and increased Chinese investment in Russian infrastructure, such as railways and ports. Russia and China are also conducting more financial transactions in the ruble and yuan, rather than the euro or dollar, a move that helps insulate the two against future sanctions and put the Chinese currency into wider circulation. China's partnership with Russia has helped to shelter Moscow from the economic fallout of the Western sanctions, enabling leader Vladimir Putin to sustain the war. Well, the West didn't take notice of this. As per usual in their arrogance, they thought they can destroy Russia with sanctions, as they have destroyed many countries, my own country included. And Putin said, fuck you, not so easy. And look where we are standing today. Europe is collapsing. And as Ursula von der Crazy would say, her famous words, Europe is in tatters I say. And then we get to the pestilence. Now, for reasons that you all understand, there's many things that I can't read to you, and there's many things that I'm going to change the words. But listen to this. A global disaster. The government database shows 10,000% increase in cancer reports due to, and you know why. And then there's this. New autopsy report reveals that those who died suddenly were likely killed by, and you know what. But I am absolutely stunned that I have seen 0 arrests, 0 trials. These pushers has poisoned a lot of people. And now we get to this. The CDC admits the jab is the cause of 1.1 million Americans died suddenly since last year. What the? Why is the Americans tolerating this shit? Why? It seems to me they don't understand what the hell these people are planning. And then we get this. The International Blood Bank for the Unvaccinated has been formed with members from at least 16 countries. Demand for pure blood skyrockets. I cannot believe that in 2022 we see things like that. And then you get this disturbing shit. The data proves it all. 50-year-olds who received what you know, 145% greater mortality rate. What the hell is going on? And then we get this tweet. Remember when the FDA called the horse medicine horse dewormer and pharmacists refused to fulfill doctor prescriptions for it? Yeah, all those people are guilty of murder. And this was in response to a tweet by Jake Shields. Yesterday, the National Institute of Health added the horse medicine to the list of COVID treatment. Looks like the conspiracy theorists were right. I can just shake my head. And then you can look at this meme. This is something millions of us are waiting for this day. And then we get this, and this is the lawyer that is acting for American servicemen. Thomas Renz, we have incentivized the murder of patients rather than incentivized treatment. When you get admitted for the pest, they get paid more. When they put you on a remdesivir, they get paid more. When you get ventilated, they get paid more. And when you die, they get paid more. This is shocking. And then Brian Berletic, I like this guy. He's a damn good analyst and he's very good in his military analysis are extremely well researched and presented. Paul Massaro tweeted, in the last 24 hours, Twitter has 1. Censored Ukrainians, 2. Suspended accounts posting open source info on oligarchs, and 3. Suspended serious journalists just doing their jobs. And that was in response to Elon Musk blocking a lot of journalists on Twitter because they doxed his account and they gave his position out publicly. And then Brian says, when you think of the damage these Western journalists, and the journalist is in, he quotes it, have done selling lies and paving way for war, millions of lives ruined or ending, including thousands of Western troops, they belong behind bars, not just suspended from Twitter. And that is really what should happen. These journalists are guilty of many sins. And then many of us must have seen the incident where King Charles knighted that guy from AstraZeneca, and this oak, Nick Pye, explain how on earth Charles could in all conscience knight the bloke from AstraZeneca. Now I'm going to answer him and says, look at the WEF connection. And then we get to the Donbass. About 80% of the equipment of the Mariupol plant, Azov Mash, was saved. Most of the production shops were cleared. A subsidiary of Kamaz will be responsible for restoring the work of Azov Mash. This is good news. After the restoration, jobs will appear in the city. I like that. And these following 3 images, I just captured them so you can get an idea of what the fuck they must deal with there in the Donbass at this time of the year. Look at that. Look at that track vehicle plowing through the mud there. And here's a better picture of the mud. And there you can see the trail. This is what they are. This is what they are dealing with. And the Russians are waiting for this to solidify and ice. And then this disturbing thing. First video from downtown Donetsk showing the damage. The bombing of the Ukrainian army took place at the time when people go to work. That Ukrainians have been bombing Donetsk city like hell the past week. I don't know. How can the West justify this? But the reality is the Western media ignores this. Ukraine decided to punish civilians of Donetsk to shift attention from Bakhmut. Ukraine shelled center of the city, the residential areas, with 40 rockets right now. I fear the loss of life will be horrific. It was absolutely a scary situation there, ugly. But the West supports this terrorism. And then they've got the fucking cheek to say they want to try Putin for war crimes. Where the hell do they come from? Ukraine hits Donetsk with worst shelling in 8 years. The city of Donetsk has been subjected to the largest scale Ukrainian artillery attack since 2014 armed coup in Kiev, local officials have said. Ukrainian troops fired 40 rockets from Grad multiple rocket launchers at central Donetsk at around 7 a.m. on Thursday. It is scary. But the West ignores us, and they can focus on the people in Kiev that are now without power. If the Russians starts bombing indiscriminately like NATO and the Americans like to do, you will see horror shows. But the Russians don't do it. They've got morality and principles. Mayor Alexei Kolemzin said at least 6 people were hurt during the shelling. Some were reportedly trapped under rubble. The central dome of a cathedral, a school and a children's playground were among the buildings hit by Kiev's artillery. On Wednesday, a watchdog recording attacks by Ukrainian troops on targets in Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republics estimated that over 4,500 civilians have been killed in the 2 regions since February. But that the fucking West will not push, because they want the public to think they are the good guys. Meanwhile, they're the killers. Look at this image. I looked at this video and I was so disturbed. Little Veronica, a girl from Donbass who died from an explosion of a 155mm shell from the French Caesar gun mount. An innocent little child perished. Angel. The priest, Father Maxim, addressed the French and the French government. Who are you fighting against? What are you getting at? At no children here? What is the freedom of your republic then? But the French are getting fucked. And then I had to include this. This is in Kherson. This guy is suspected of supporting the Russians. And this is what the Ukrainian Zazis are doing to him. These vile and cruel shots from the country of the victorious Nazism. And as I've said in my one Skidmarks, I said Russia had full right to invade Ukraine. The West is glorifying Nazism, and it is going to cost them a hell of a lot. And then we get to that what a fuck moment, and you just have to read this, shake your head and grin or weep. A guy that hates America traded a guy that hates America to a guy that hates America for a guy that hates America. How fucking crazy is that? And on that point, please give me a like and a subscribe and share the thing. Thank you for your support, and I see the channel is growing nicely, and I really appreciate everything. The likes is very important, and the shares. Please have a nice day.